This is Keys to the Shop, episode 82, a conversation with Cosimo Libardo of Toby's Estate Coffee. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host, and I am really happy that you decided to come here and spend some time and learn some things about coffee and get tools that'll help your career and just be inspired. I think today is just a really great episode, something that will help you focus your efforts and set the trajectory for a sustainable and soulful business. You know, we're talking with Cosimo Libardo of Toby's Estate Coffee, and it's a really great conversation. Now, before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsors here at Keys to the Shop, starting with Prima Coffee. Now, Prima Coffee is a specialty coffee equipment supplier based out of Louisville, Kentucky, and from the beginning of their business, they have set out to make the best coffee brewing equipment available to the general public, and that focus that they have in doing that is to curate the best equipment for every need, from grinders to espresso machines to under-counter refrigeration. If you're just looking for a really cool home espresso or coffee setup or commercial, anything that you want, really, Prima Coffee has it. You just go to prima-coffee.com and take a look at what they have to offer. There is a ton of resources available on their website. They put a big emphasis on having the expertise to help their customers get the right gear to fit every situation. Highly recommend them. Again, prima-coffee.com. And when you check out, do let them know that Keys to the Shop sent you. Now, also, I would like to thank Pacific Foods, the ones who make the Barista Series line of non-dairy performance beverages, which is designed specifically for professional baristas and the standards for excellence that they demand. So whether it's almond, soy, coconut, or rice, its ability to take the heat from steaming and produce an unmatched silky texture and keep the flavor balance focused on coffee makes it a perfect choice for your cafe's menu. Pacific is a huge supporter of specialty coffee, and they have been for years, and they've demonstrated this by listening to and serving the needs of real specialty coffee professionals. So go to pacificfoods.com and see how the Barista Series can elevate the performance of your cafe's non-dairy game. So really quick, if you haven't already, do subscribe to Keys to the Shop. And if you are so inclined, leave a review or a rating on iTunes. Let us know how the show has impacted you or your shop. That would be really awesome. And thank you ahead of time for that. Now, to our show, we are talking with Cosimo Libardo of Toby's Estate Coffee. Cosimo has over 22 years of experience in internationalization and management with a deep passion for strategy, innovation, and sustainability. I mean, he just really is all about the business of serving great coffee, and he really believes in the scalability of specialty coffee in particular. So he started his career as a junior salesman back in 1998 at Nuova Simonelli, and he just grew in the company really quickly and ended up leading the company to more than triple the size of its business between 2004 and 2014. His strategic vision resulted in the breakthrough gravimetric dosing for espresso machines, as well as the Klima Pro technology for the Mythos 1 grinders. And in 2014, Cosimo moved to Sydney, Australia to become the managing director of Toby's Estate Coffee, leading a specialty coffee roaster with nationwide presence in Australia, in addition to Singapore, the Philippines, Kuwait, Indonesia, and the United States. Cosimo is a member of Suntory Coffee's ANZ executive leadership team and is a past SCAE, the Specialty Coffee Association of Europe, president from 2014 to 2015, and during that time he successfully co-created and launched the Barista Guild of Europe, which connected the barista community and created new opportunities for learning platforms for its members. And in 2016, he contributed to drive the merger between the two largest specialty coffee associations. That would be the Specialty Coffee Association of Europe and of America. This led to, in 2017, the establishment of the Global Specialty Coffee Association, the SCA. So Cosimo has a lot of experience in producing change in the industry and being an industry leader that it just introduces innovation that changes the way we make coffee, the way we think about extraction and flavor. And he has seen a lot over the course of his years in coffee. And that's what we talk about in this episode. We talk a lot about flavor and the experiments that they're doing, the projects that they're doing at Toby's to sort of change perception of flavor of coffee. But we talk about the role that flavor plays in the sustainability of specialty. We talk about the scalability of specialty coffee, how to do that successfully. And also we just talk about the knowledge that is needed to make a sustainable business out of specialty coffee, be you a roaster or a owner of a shop, a retail shop. In this conversation, there are a ton of valuable insights that Cosimo brings to the table that you're not going to want to miss. And so I want to get you to that content right now. So without further ado from me, let's go to my conversation with Cosimo Lebardo of Toby's Estate Coffee. Cosimo, welcome to Keys to the Shop. I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. You have been a very, very busy person. You're now relocated on the other side of the world. I knew you from back in your Nuova Simonelli days. How are you doing? How are you? Are you just burning a candle at both ends? It sounds like you're living a pretty fulfilled coffee life.
Well, burning the candle might be a good analogy. I am fine. I'm loving Australia. I needed something in the coffee chain that was not geographically different. I was looking more about going away from equipment and being more in coffee in general and learning aspects of and prove to myself that certain ideas I had in mind of things that could be done in coffee could actually be possible. So I guess Australia being in my opinion, and I'm taking responsibility for this statement, the most advanced specialty market on the planet, where specialty is the model of reference for everyone. This place was the right place to prove my ideas and to see if coffee can do different things, specialty coffee in particular.
You've had a big role in a lot of advancing of technology, and now you're the managing director at Toby's Estate. What are tell us a little bit about your role there and your goals, and now that you're with Toby's since 2014, I think.
Yes, I started in November 2014, and Toby's is, to describe what I do, managing director is the title, yes. I would say that I'm a talent multiplier. That's what I try to be. My philosophy has always been you grow if you let other people around you grow. And that's been my approach in my previous company, which was Nuova Simonelli, and it's been when I was president of the SCAE. I've tried to put the right people in the right places and creating a recipe pretty much. That's what I do. I find the ingredients, and then the ingredients start working together on their own. Often all the things I've been involved with, and my greatest motivation is innovation. That's who knows me and knows my history. Innovation in coffee, it's the biggest thing for me that gets me out of bed every day. Other than that, I understood that you can't do things alone, and real innovation actually comes often from the people around you, the ones that get it, and multiply that knowledge and talent into something bigger and better and new that wasn't existing before. So pretty much I can tell you that's what I do at Toby's.
It sounds like you're just kind of a catalyst for the kind of change that you want to see in the world of coffee. And I know you've got a lot of projects going on there right now. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about what the current projects are that you're working on to affect those things that you're talking about facilitating.
Listen, I don't believe in. I mean, I wish I could do and have the budget to do the big projects. I have some things that I would like to do in coffee before I die. They are not always the easiest things. I do think there are things that can be done on every day by pretty much everyone. It's just the process and rigor that goes behind it that is required, that sometimes is missing to specialty. I feel the biggest thing missing to specialty is the discipline of doing things with a certain method, with a certain process in order to make it measurable. So what we've done at Toby's effectively is starting projects that we're creating that discipline and that knowledge base. We have come up with a few products that are new in a way, but they're just based on a different mix of values in terms of what they bring along with themselves. So to answer your question, I think I don't want to sound like I'm trying to sell what Toby's does, but there are a few projects that I'm really proud of. The first one is called El Futuro. It's a project we started a while back. It's 8 months ago. This project is about merging flavor with coming from exceptional coffees with sustainability. So it's called El Futuro, and is basically, the translation in English means the future, because we're trying to guarantee a future to some coffee communities that are behind these blends and these projects. So basically there is a farm in Costa Rica it's a co-op of farms, micro farms in Costa Rica called Cofedota. What we're doing is we're buying a very good quality blender from them at a premium, and then reinvesting a certain amount of money every year in their education. So they're kind of double dipping. The same happens in Guatemala with Santa Felisa, which last year won Cup of Excellence. Annabella Meneses was also a guest at Knowledge Talks for us and explained her social model around farming and how to involve the kids and families in the daily life of the farm when they are farming. So when they're harvesting, pretty much they have a mobile daycare for kids on the farm. So the kids don't have to work on actually picking coffee, but they can be with their parents. The same happens during the year where they're trying to make it more sustainable for them with education, food, gardening, hygiene. They're trying to teach them how to survive in their environment. Then there is this rural hospital in Africa called in Malawi, in the region called Muzuzu, which makes great coffee, by the way. It's a place that you can reach only by plane, pretty much. And they've built this hospital, and they need more beds, oxygen machines, to make it sustainable for the community to stay there and cultivate coffee. So El Futuro has been definitely a project where, sustainability often is not associated with good coffee quality and excellence in taste. We try to show that sustainable can be excellent. And that's sort of the new mix that we try to create with that concept. What we have then done is to make it sustainable for consumers. Mm-hmm. In the sense that we have tried to price it in a way that was comparable to other products they buy in the market and not trying to make it more expensive. And secondly, like often it happens with fair trade, organic, you have those premiums that are paid in terms of getting your coffee certified and those additional costs.
Right.
And the second thing we try to do is also to make it accessible in terms of flavor. So we try to go for a very easy combination of flavors that consumers could enjoy on an everyday basis. So we went for caramel, almond, orange. Those are the three main descriptors. And it's an easy coffee to drink. So sustainability doesn't have to be difficult or overpriced. You can actually achieve a balance between the needs of the consumer and the needs of the farmer.
Oh, that's excellent. So sustainable throughout the entire value chain, keeping in mind the needs of each person. That, one person needs to buy the coffee. It needs to be something that people don't just discount as not for them because it's too expensive or is, highly acidic or just one noted and things like that. That's really brilliant. So, there you have another project that's focused on flavor that I've been seeing recently, the Shift project. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I will tell you about 4 projects. Pretty much all of them, 5 projects, all of them are based on flavor. So Shift is the latest one. It's more, and that target for the target for that project is more the geeky part of the market. It's based on changing perception of origin, and changing perception of origin goes through flavor, in my opinion. We have a lot of preconceived ideas about what a Kenya should taste like, or what a Colombia should taste like, or what a Brazil should taste like, and how boring Brazil is. Well, with our direct sourcing efforts, we have understood that actually that isn't the case anymore. That might have been true years ago. Right now, coffee has to offer a variety of flavors through new origins, through new processing methods that don't belong anymore to any specific free-formed idea of origin or varietals or processes. And that's why we created Shift. Shift is for the coffee lover, the person that really is into flavor. And it's made also for the person that travels. So we're trying to combine a number of different values in the mix. So we have pre-portioned 3 bags of coffee, 3 little sachets, not bags, sachets that are 33 grams each. They contain 33 grams of beans. The reason for 33 grams was that we considered like you might need a few beans to purge the grinder, and then you would have a dose for a double cup. Mm-hmm. 15 grams to 250 of water. So it's pre-dose. And having 3 coffees, normally when you travel, you try to bring some coffee with you. And these sachets are very small, ultra thin, and they're easy to take with you. And you have 3 different coffees that are very different in flavor that take you on a journey. So you have a journey within the journey. You can also obviously drink it at home. And in Australia, which is a big espresso drinking country, filter is kind of growing and is not the most developed or most drank form of coffee. So basically, we try to give people an experience. I think filter is much better than espresso in terms of transferring flavor to consumers. An experience for the amateurs, the geeks that want to take home this coffee and have 3 different things that don't taste the same within a week. You can have 3 different coffees. So you have 100 grams in total, and you can have your cup of very exquisite new coffee every morning, for instance, before you go to work. The other thing that comes with Shift is that you don't know which coffee you're tasting. Oh. So, we have created a scratch card, one of those scratchies, they call it here in Australia.
Okay. Like a lottery.
Yeah, like a lottery, the instant lottery cards.
Yeah.
So basically inside you find the description of the coffees. So you find a card that explains you what's the theme of that volume. And I need to take a step back. So every edition of Shift will have a different theme. One will be on origin, one will be on varietals, one could be on the naturals, one could be on different new frontiers of processing. So basically what we're doing is every volume, and volume 1 will be effectively out in a month. I'll send you some for you to try.
Oh, excellent.
Will be out in a month. But what we're trying to do is play, and actually the consumer of that coffee will have to play with its own mind in terms of accepting the fact he or she might not know about what It's actually in the bag. And at the end, sort of going to this scratch card and find out all the information about the coffee. So we have a little card that explains what the volume is about, and then there is a surprise at the end. It's a bit of a game. I think flavor is a game, and playing with your own mind a bit and challenging yourself in terms of what you taste is always a good thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. That sounds like a really fascinating project, and I'll look forward to trying that. Thank you for that. You're talking about flavor and accessibility of flavor, and then you're with your first project, El Futuro, and then the second project, Shift, is also focused on tricking your mind into like forcing people to admit some kind of a bias almost in some ways, which leads me to think like consumers make decisions on their coffee for a number of different reasons, flavor being one really big one. And, working in coffee bars, we transfer the hard work of the industry over to the consumer in good and bad ways. And sometimes flavor is one of those ways that we can kind of alienate people with how we describe it, or, how we're brewing it, or what we're roasting, how we're roasting it. How do you view how we're doing in terms of relaying flavor to the consumer and how that affects their demand for specialty coffee?
Flavor is king. Flavor is the ultimate delivery of, and something that will take away from an experience they had in a cafe. The cafe might be pretty and everything, but the impact of flavor as in creating a relationship with a consumer is immense. We all remember the flavor of the best food we had in our lives, or the best glass of wine, or whatever experience. So flavor is the main form of communication in terms of creating a relationship with consumers, coffee consumers in this case. I think that the industry has done some good things in that sense, and has not done much in other senses. So one thing that has been achieved in terms of the relationship with consumers is that specialty coffee has shown that new flavors are possible. So I think consumers were expecting coffee to taste like coffee before specialty in a way. There was a certain variety within tasting like coffee, but there wasn't that level of expectation that comes now when you walk into a shop and drink specialty coffee. They also kind of created a different, and I think, the big chains have also contributed to create that as a form of marketing for themselves. They're much better at communicating with consumers than the small guys are. They have, bigger offices, they have marketing teams that are bigger, more budget, but still they've helped everyone. In a sort of paradox that comes with it, in terms of creating this relationship with specialty. I do believe that consumers now are more educated, expecting more. I can tell you in Australia, definitely that's the case. Specialty is the model reference for the whole market. Mm-hmm. They also expect strength to be a factor. So the modulation of flavor has been another aspect that they got trained on. You can ask for this. It's okay if you ask for stronger, weaker coffees. Not that necessarily that's the right thing, but the customer got the right to ask for stuff walking into a shop and asking for flavors or specific flavors in coffee. Then the part that has not been done well is the reproducibility of that flavor along the supply chain, and consistency in delivering that flavor. And that's where specialty sort of imploded in a way, in my opinion, and that's my opinion, I take responsibility for it, where the work has been done to make it less accessible, so that the randomness of flavors that are provided sometimes in some shops, in terms of consistency of delivering it, are always justified as normal. And my standard instead is very different. We're trying, and that's why all our concepts have a very strict declaration, pre-declaration of the flavor you should taste. And we're very strict with our baristas in training them. And that's why those 5 concepts I was talking about, we mentioned 2, but I can quickly give you the other 3 just to put it on the list, are flavor-based, because flavor is the key of what we do. The other one is called the underdogs, and is about coffees that taste fantastic from origins that are rated as a lower grade, like Myanmar, Uganda. We had Malawi this year to launch Malawi as part of linked also to the El Futuro, and Mexico, which is always considered a second tier or third tier origin. And we are displaying flavors that are new, that are unconventional because they don't belong to origins that are known. So they don't fit the same mix. And I had lavender in coffee for the first time in my life from Mexico. So, and lavender in a very clear way. We had a Costa Rica that had cinnamon. You could totally taste the cinnamon in it.
Nice.
So these are the experiences where you link with consumers, and that was done through underdogs. Then we've used extraction cards that are based on flavor, and we're teaching our customers, and these are espresso-based extraction cards, but we're going to now launch the brew-based extraction cards very soon, on sort of saying, these are the 3 flavors you want in this blend or in this coffee. This is what the weight that goes in how many seconds with which basket. And this is the weight out as a function of time, meaning times in terms of aging of the coffee. So after 1 week, in order to obtain these flavors, this is how much you should extract in weight. After 2 weeks, this is how much you should extract in weight. After 3 weeks, this is how much you should extract. After 4 weeks, this is how much you should extract. Then we don't go over 4 weeks, because for us, freshness is also very important. And it's amazing how most of our blends tend to peak at 3 weeks in terms of reaching the maximum delivery of flavor. They tend to trend up to those 3 weeks and then trend down after 3 weeks. With filter, we don't use Omni roast, or we actually roast to the coffee to deliver the flavor we want in the coffee. So every coffee is roasted differently. We don't have a philosophy in roasting coffee that is one. Is normally around 2 weeks that we see that the filter coffee gives its best. So we definitely are trying to give tools to operators in order to deliver flavor. That's the key for us. The flavor delivery and having a conversation around flavor, not just selling a bag of coffee, but selling a concept is the key.
Yeah. So selling also the concept of consistency, giving the tools to be able to do it over and over again in a predictable way, sounds like part of the goal as well.
Yes, it's auditing. We have over 800 customers in Australia, and we look at basically allowing them to be self-sufficient, training them. Training is important, but training, it works for a short period of time. Then you got to give them tools to audit what they're doing, and the auditing comes from processing brewing. Obviously, they need to know what to do with it. And the other piece is also what they need to deliver needs to be declared to them, and how. And that's where we decided to create tools for our partners in the market that are trying to do the right job every day to audit what they're delivering in flavor, also as a function of aging, so that they have an horizon and they can see how coffee is moving along that horizon. And if flavors are not coming according to that, you will know then that it's the water, or it's the condition of the grinder, or it's the machine. So we're not trying to make a comprehensive formula, rather a tool that helps them navigating through what changes, the variables that change every day.
So it sounds like what you were saying earlier about the unpredictability of flavor, and then enter in these tools to help people become able to reproduce these flavors for consumers so they know what they're getting. I do see what you're talking about, where people, and I myself have done this, that you rely on the novelty of it being an agricultural product and sort of blame, the coffee is doing something funny today and it's tasting this way and there's nothing we can do about it. So we just kind of say the coffee is tasting different one week and the next week, but we never really have the tools to be able to reproduce it. It sounds like passing that on, kind of like a crutch, is a way to push customers away as well.
Yeah, I don't believe in that. I believe that actually tools exist, do a much better job in terms of what we do with coffee. And that's specifically what I came to do here in Australia, was to prove that. The scalability of the specialty model and experience. That's what actually Toby's is about. And that's why we invested with a very clear direction shared with the team that came from the team. And the scalability of quality is possible. You need rigor and discipline, as we said earlier. To make specialty scalable, knowledge and the creation of a language, a common language internally and with your customers, in terms of your reseller, if you're a coffee company, in this case, it's the key. Knowledge to me is a precondition to flavor. If you want to put it's sort of an extreme, but I want to try to put it in one sentence. Knowledge is precondition to flavor. I feel that the most of the industry, and where specialty coffee is particularly soft, is that knowledge. The reality is that I believe that roasters, so green coffee is a natural product, is processed, every season is different. You get different flavors from the same farm you've been buying the year before. That's already a factor. But those flavors, in a way, can be analyzed, studied, and become predictable. So that coffee is allowed for that coffee to taste differently, especially if it's a single origin. With blends, you can obtain the same flavor just by changing formulation. If flavor is what you want to deliver with that blend as a roaster, then roasters that know what to do can change that. That's the whole concept of a blend, to give consistency with changing variables within the formulation of that blend. So with single origin, the game is different. You study those coffees, you can decide, well, first if you want to buy them or not, and secondly, what they taste like that here, and if you're okay with what they deliver. Once you've made that decision, you need to study those coffees and roast them right. Now, within Toby's, in order to obtain that, and it sounds now, obviously, it sounds something that not everyone can do, but put it into perspective and scale, what I'm about to say. We have 9 Q graders inside Toby's and another 10, around 10 that are going to be Q graders very soon. My objective is to have 20 Q graders within the company. And Q graders are not just involved with buying or roasting coffee. They're also salespeople. They're also part of the finance team, because we needed to create an internal language around quality. Then we have 13 ASTs inside Toby's right now.
Describe to us what that is.
ASTs is the authorized SCA trainers. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we use those guys and girls to basically go and train and audit internally ourselves and who's in the market as our partners. And therefore, we create rigor in terms of that delivery. And we have created a distribution model for knowledge, or for certain types of knowledge, I would say. So then when you roast, you got to study the coffee. You got to really make the coffee talk. And the biggest trick then is to keep it consistent. Very often, most roasters, specialty roasters I see, roast coffee within the parameters or within what they would like to get out of that coffee 30% of the times, they still sell the other 70%. But it's not, and that's where it becomes difficult for the operator to tell, was the machine, was the coffee, was the grinder, was the roaster. I find a huge level of inconsistency. There are a few roasters that do a great job in that sense, but it's not the majority of the market. And that's where specialty as a whole, when it gets sold as an idea to consumers, has a few cracks in terms of that consistency in delivery of flavor. Mm. And then there is the delivery in the market, which is the cafes, which are also often blamed for not being consistent. There is a training and knowledge issue at coffee shop level. But that's the result of other factors, which is a cultural connection with the roaster supplying you and not just a transactional connection in buying coffee. It's about training that they receive from the roaster in terms of doing the right job, and tools like the ones we're developing by the creation of whole concepts. So you don't stick just to making coffee, you have to stick to the concept. If you're buying that concept from us and you decide you want El Futuro versus Hulamaloo, which is another blend that we do, you have two very different things, and you need to be true to the thing you're doing, not just making coffee.
Yeah, you've said in another interview on Sprudge on our website, you mentioned that there's a shallowness to specialty coffee. Is the transactional nature of the roaster and between roaster and cafe part of that, or the main thing that contributes to that? Could you just explain a little bit more about, shallowness versus what depth would look like in relationship and execution?
I have traveled. I made a calculation the other day. 54 countries worldwide. Wow. And 54 coffee markets. I don't think I've seen it all, but I've seen a good chunk of it. And I can tell you that it's sort of the same everywhere, although in a different stage of the life cycle of coffee, depending if specialty coffee especially is new or is in a mature form. I would say that the transactional part is definitely, the roaster has become a bank in more mature markets, subsides everything, especially where the market becomes more competitive. Roasters tend to become more financial partners than quality or product partners or concept partners with a cafe. And cafes get lazy. It's easier. The industry of coffee is sort of an easy one to get in. It's not an easy one in which you can survive. Barriers to get in are made very easy. Barriers to survive are very high. 65% to 75% is the failure of cafes in the first year. And that's evidence of the shallowness of this industry in that sense. There is definitely a part of it to blame also on the cafe owners, where when they go into a cafe or in the business of opening a shop and they're starting, they do it to sometimes have a go because they like coffee and don't understand how difficult coffee is in terms of waking up early in the morning, the amount of work, the amount of knowledge required to do it right, the amount of drive and vision in terms of communicating something different from the guy that is only 500 meters away, or if you want, we can call it 1,000 yards away from you. It's not easy. There is a lot of competition out there in most markets right now in specialty. You need to go in your cafe and have a soul. You need to execute a culture, not just coffee. And that's what we tried to create with Toby's, not just make coffee. It's important that you're different, that you do 2-3 things right that are true to yourself and to your customers, that represent who you are. Sometimes you see very, not sometimes, I would say that unfortunately going to Melbourne, for instance, to talk about Australia, which is the market that's more in front of my eyes, but I've been in the US recently. Most coffee shops look the same as there was one shop that was very successful usually, and that shop then gets imitated. So there are they tick boxes,
Yeah.
And they have the same thing. So if copper has been in fashion and marble, you'll find all shops looking copper and marble just to use two materials. And then you got black and white, and then you got the minimal menus, and they all do the same. And the level of noise in the marketing attempting to be cool for being cool has reached a level where consumers don't even look at it anymore. I think that what really goes through is the execution with a smile, possibly the engagement on flavor with consumers. Some places that are less in your face, that have a true soul, that have knowledge. When you walk to the table and they ask you what you want and drive you through the menu and take time and care and competence to show you what they're doing, are much more successful in the long term than the ones that are just trying to take boxes.
That's a great thought. There was an episode we had with Hide Izaki, and he was talking about I forget the name of the shop in Korea, but it was a very authentic expression of its area. It was very soulful, and that's why it was one of his favorites when I asked him. But you're totally right. There's this phenomenon of this rapid spread of ideas, and I tend to blame it on Instagram, where an owner might be going through and looking at things that they can apply to their cafe. But what you're saying is that that's not going to sustain you because you haven't discovered the soul of your business that will get you through the tough times.
Yeah, at the end, the cafe owner needs to ask itself, new or old that it is, because cafe owners, I divide them also. I don't treat them as the same. It's too general. You have people that are studying coffee for the first time. You have people that are their third shop. Obviously, they're very different cafe owners, right? So you have the first one is sort of trying to have a go, or very passionate about coffee and trying to get into coffee, which is easy to get into coffee. It's staying into coffee that shows how good you are. And they don't know, so sometimes the reasoning behind why they do want to get in coffee is not the right reasoning. What is their project with that place? There is also the business aspect. That's why I love Colin Hartman. Colin Hartman, in a very unpretentious way, went and talked about it. And that was the talk. We do knowledge talks in Australia. You might have heard about it. And Colin's was the most popular. And there were around 750 people over 4 events that we organized that came to that. Most of them were shop owners. Sort of at the end, you should have seen the amount of time that Colin spent one-on-one with them, like almost a priest in the confessional, where they were venting all the failures and all the things. And it was cathartic for me. He gave me how much broken the industry is and not admitting it, because we're busy posting nice pictures of food on Instagram and how cool we are. The reality is the business model behind what we do is far from being proven, is far from being known by most operators, and that explains why there is such a high failure rate. Financial literacy, the purpose of why you're opening your business are key, because if you're opening your business to sell it after 2 years, it's fine. You just have to modulate what you do accordingly. If you're in business to be there for the rest of your life because that's what you really want to do, that's another reason. They're all very legitimate, but they all require a different approach in your coffee shop from a financial point of view, because you might rather rent than buy equipment. Now, rental is becoming more popular even here in Australia. And there are companies that will finance it for you, will still go in your books when you sell your shop or in your costs, so you can deduct it from your profit. So depending on where the life cycle is of the cafe, basically, or the life cycle of the operator itself, you have completely different needs within operating a cafe. In Australia, the average lifespan of a cafe nowadays is 2 years. before it changes hands or closes.
Oh, wow. Seems fast.
It is. And imagine being a roaster with another 800 roasters in this environment. What it looks like.
Yeah.
Australia has only 15,000 specialized coffee shops. There are many other places where you sell coffee or you can buy coffee, but the coffee shops are around 15,000, including chains. And that gives you a measure of how competitive is Australia and what level of thinking goes into operating in this field. Yet is the most fascinating market for me still, because this is where real innovation can really happen. And actually, it's the hardest test. And if it works here, it can work anywhere.
So I'm really interested, we're talking, and there's those of us who have shops and are either getting into it or currently own stores, and I think want that soul, want sustainability, and Lord knows, I mean, the success of a specialty coffee shop that does a great job will do wonders for the supply chain. Just having a reliable avenue for that coffee to be translated into a beverage, is sustainability for our industry. So how would you advise somebody in that situation take action so that they're not one number amongst millions of people starting coffee shops that, unbeknownst to them, are just dealing in transactions and maybe missing out on that soulful element that gives sustainability? What actions should they be taking, like right after they get done listening to this conversation?
To me, it's basically, I would say three things. One is knowledge, as I said before. Knowledge is the soft spot of the market, is where most companies, from roasters to cafes, are very shallow. And that's why at Toby's we've invested a considerable amount of money in knowledge, internal training, and knowledge to be transferred to our partners. I give you an example in that sense. There was the fifth project I was very proud of, which is up and coming, that I didn't mention before. It's called Click. So we're moving away from the traditional school that teaches how to make flat whites or almond piccolos to baristas, which we will still be doing. But that's not what a school should be. A modern coffee roaster should be about. Click is an acronym for Center for Learning, Intelligence, and Coffee Knowledge.
Nice. So
we try to gather the intelligence from all our customer base and outside our customer base on the good practices, funnel it in Click, and digest it and spit it out in the forms of books about visual merchandising, about workflow. We want to teach our partners the business of making great coffee, not just how to make great coffee. So Click is going to be the business of flavor. Flavor is a business in itself. And that's what Toby's is going to be about, and that we're trying to achieve here, because that's the need the market has, knowing how to do that. That's why I said knowledge is a precondition to flavor earlier. Click is going to be the vehicle delivering that. We're well on our way to deliver books as a roaster, which is kind of unheard of, on how to run your shop better.
Can't wait to see that.
Yeah, no, we created a visual merchandise. This is the first takeaway from this. So we created a visual merchandising guide for coffee shops. We all know the theory of visual merchandising in retail stores, like you could have a Costco or a Walmart. They do it in a different way from another Whole Foods, for instance. They're very different experiences when you walk in those, right? And the same happens with shops. Shops are real estate that is not used to sell retail bags. In order to make your business sustainable from tomorrow, and this was the immediate takeaway that we've understood, retail, and this came also from Colin, by the way. Colin was a big advocate for it and opened my eyes, is that all the investment that currently goes in a shop goes on the wet coffee side, which is basically brewed coffee. We call it wet coffee in Australia. Means, coffee with water gets wet, or milk gets wet. Yeah. So anything that has got water or milk in it, it's wet coffee. And then there is dry coffee. Dry coffee is what goes on the shelves. It's the beans. They're dry, nicely stored in a bag. Dry coffee is the biggest opportunity to engage with consumers.
Yes.
Dry coffee is not done well in shops. There is no pricing. We try to make it look cool, and it becomes automatically inaccessible. I think there is a trade-off between cool and accessibility, and a balance that should be found between the two. So pricing should be positioned on the bag. There is a certain way you should display it on the shelves. There is a certain positioning of the shelf in the cafe. There's a lot of space in cafes at CNUs. And consumers that normally take the dry coffee away are not the ones that come to your shop afterwards. In the week, you have a certain amount of consumers that come in, or customers that come in, and those customers are the ones that won't be coming on the weekends usually, unless you're a neighbor shop. But if you're in a big city or in a busy CBD, central business district, you'll find that your weekend customer base is different from your week customer base. So dry coffee beans is a good way to keep them engaged with you and the brand of coffee you represent. That's one simple takeaway that we're trying to develop with Click, and develop a whole method and have case studies to display in that book. So really? Wow. That will be the first thing that we're going to do in terms of the business of serving specialty coffee. The other thing, obviously, is knowledge in general. Knowledge in general in terms of knowing how flavor is created and reproduced infinite amount of times. Knowing how to run a business, the financials of running a business is important. Knowing the purpose that you have in running that business. I don't feel when I talk to coffee shop owners, most times that's clear to them. They're just making a living. That shouldn't be enough. You should look at the reason behind that, what you want to do with that business, what you want to do with coffee. And the last one is definitely find a partner that has the same culture you want, partner roaster, that has the same culture you want for your shop, and just doesn't throw money at you. Because money is very short term. You'll find yourself, money will not make you succeed. It will make it easy for you to open and easier for you to fail. If you don't have the right fundamentals in place, money is not the solution. Because you'll drain that money out very quickly anyway.
Mm-hmm. And you can tell they're the right one for you because they're looking out for your best interest in that. They're not just after your money. Like how could you tell that you've got the right cultural fit?
I think the right cultural fit, there is nothing that is absolutely right. You're trying to find a partner, someone that is an invested interest in you to succeed. I think that's the key. And you can sense when someone has done their best to make you succeed and not just sell you something. Mm-hmm. Those are two very different things. I think that's where Toby's unpretentiously and that's the reason that attracted me to this company, is we try to make all the innovation we do in the end needs to be applicable in the shop. It's not just to be cool in the industry with our peers. At the end, it needs to end up somewhere. Either it's in the wet coffee or the dry coffee or the whole design of the place. We try to be consultants and help our partners to deliver a coffee that has our name on it and makes us proud in the best way possible.
Hmm. And this is where the success of specialty and its scalability is kind of centered.
It is. And the vision for Toby's is, I can tell you, we have done this in an organized way. We have two objectives with what we do every day: innovate in coffee and grow sustainably. And grow sustainably is sustainably for growers of coffee, for us, for our partners, machine suppliers, and other types of suppliers we have in terms of knowledge as well, and for our customers in terms of shops, and for their customers in terms of making it accessible and affordable, making a good experience through accessible and affordable. That's where all that we do is aimed at. Pushing the boundaries of great coffee is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to get people to experience more good coffee in more places, which is possible. Mm-hmm. We're trying to make specialty scalable.
Excellent. I mean, feel like we could all take a lesson from that playbook, and I feel like we've definitely got a lot of great advice just in this last 50 minutes or so. This has been hugely helpful, and it makes me really excited to just keep an eye on what y'all are up to down there in Australia. Your website, Instagram, like, well, how can we keep up to date, and best places to keep up to date with the projects that you have going on?
Well, I'd say that the Toby's Estate accounts, we obviously are also in New York, by the way, so we're actually in many different places just to try to make specialty scalable. We're testing that internationally just because we challenge our own ideas. So there are a few Toby's Estate accounts. There's one in the US, one in Kuwait, one in Indonesia, one in the Philippines, one in Singapore, and one in Australia. The Australian one is the one, obviously Australia is sort of the heart of everything. So I'd say Toby's Estate Coffee on Instagram, on Facebook, we don't use much Twitter in Australia. It's not very popular. And yeah, it's not as popular as it is in the US. Amazingly, I found out that was sort of the case here. I'd say Facebook and Instagram would be probably the easiest ways to get constant updates on what we do. Just navigate through the accounts and find the Australian one. That would be probably the best and the main source of information.
Awesome. Thank you so much for just explaining this and giving this inspiration. I feel like this helps us set a trajectory for our businesses and our mindsets as we kind of figure out what we're going to do with our careers and our businesses long term. And it's just been really incredible. So thank you very much, Cosimo, for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Chris, for giving me the opportunity to talk about the scalability of specialty. I think I've been talking a lot about Toby's. I think that what I talked about can be used by many companies, both roasters and at the shop level. I believe that specialty is scalable. I'm very passionate about it. And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it and maybe inspire some other companies to do the same we're doing. Thank you, Chris.
Well, I am very thankful to have gotten the chance to chat with Cosimo about these things. Where we focus in the present determines where we end up in the future, and how we invest into our knowledge about coffee and business and accessibility, and how flavor is translated into the cup with the consumer. All of these things we talked about today they're so important. And what we do now with our time and energy will determine what kind of an industry will we have in 10 years. We're living currently in what we invested in the past. And so, like I said, I'm really thankful for Cosimo's words. And I think he did a lot, just an excellent job casting a vision for what we can be shooting for and where we can be focused to achieve sustainability, scalability of specialty coffee globally. Each of our businesses, be they small or large, contributes to the momentum of specialty coffee as a whole. So thank you, Cosimo, for helping give us some inspiration and encouragement for the road ahead. Now, if you want the show notes for this episode and want to be kept up to date on news from Keys to the Shop, simply visit keystotheshop.com. And when you do, a little box will pop up and you can put your email in there, and you'll be on the list to receive the show notes delivered to your inbox every week. So that is simply the key takeaways from each episode, as well as the links to resources mentioned in the conversation that'll help support the content of our talk. as well as some, news as things come up, like speaking engagements, etc. for Keys to the Shop. That will be in there as well from time to time. So yeah, go ahead and do that. Super simple. Now, if you have questions, comments, or feedback, you can reach out to me by emailing chris@keystotheshop.com. You can also use that email to reach out to me if you're interested in working with Keys to the Shop Consulting to help you in your career or your business. Let's have a conversation, see what that looks like. If you need some training or advice, I'll look forward to speaking with you on that. And you can also give me a call at 502-715-1465. Go and take the wisdom that Cosimo shared, really think about it, and see where you can start applying it in your shop. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Go and take the wisdom that Cosimo shared with us today. Really think about it and see where you can just start applying it in your career or in your cafe. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.